You cannot escape the news without hearing about AI. Vibe coding, on the other hand, is new. It's only been around for about 7 months or so, at least at the recording of this video. The question is, can you really vibe code a production grade application? That's the question that I want to ask and talk about in this particular video. Vibe coding is this concept of letting the AI write the code for you and just vibe with it. Just go with the flow. Whatever the AI says to do, you just kind of follow along. The problem with that is that completely contradicts sort of traditional way of doing development. And this is a real problem. So if you're a traditional developer, the things that come to mind for you are proper security, scalability, and where's my data being stored? What are the policies around my data? Like, these are real questions that any developer or any person that's in the enterprise level space has to think about. So to have an AI just come along and just vibe code your application, it's just not going to cut it. I get it. I'm a .NET developer. I've been around for about 20 years or so. I've built large applications, small applications, every single thing in between. And I've come to a place where I'm just embracing the AI. It's like, let's just do the vibe coding thing. So I've decided to build this channel around vibe coding. And I'm on a mission to build vibe coded applications that are production grade in the most scalable way and the most secure way possible on traditional architectural infrastructure, but using sort of vibe coded principles. So with that, in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to try to weigh sort of the pros and cons of both approach. I'm going to try to tell you sort of like when it makes sense to vibe code and when it makes sense to go the traditional route. I'm hoping to give you an overview so that you can make a decision on when you need to bring in, if you're an entrepreneur, when to bring in a developer and when you could just vibe code things all together. So with that, if that's something you're interested in, let's jump right into the video. Okay, so I really like this quote. This is one of those quotes that I heard it and I was like, I just have to use this in some way or shape or form. I saw this guy, Chris Kelly, did a presentation on AI, and the line that stood out to me was that when tractors came around, they didn't get rid of farmers. So I'm sure you've heard the news that all over the internet, Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, they're all just laying off people and they're all claiming that it's because of AI. And if you listen to the news, AI is taking over everything. AI is going to take over your job. AI is going to replace every single thing. And this quote just directly helps me to think about this problem in a way that is more generalized. Because back in the days, I don't know when tractors came along. I haven't done that research, but I'm going to say, I don't know, the early 1900s or something like that. I think Lamborghini, if I remember, was one of the first tractor companies or something like that. When tractors were coming along, I'm sure farmers that had horse and carriage and, I don't know, ox or whatever it is he had at that time were probably saying to themselves that we don't want this thing in our field. It's probably destroying the crops. It's just destroying the earth. Like, it's just too much. So I'm sure there was some pushback, but I'm also sure that at the exact same time, there were some people that were saying, oh, when we have tractors, we won't need these farmers anymore. We're going to get rid of all the farmers. We're going to basically reduce our workforce. And I'm sure that that did happen to some degree. But here's the reality. It's a lot more nuanced than just the obvious tractors are going to replace farmers. So in the exact same way, this conversation that we're having about whether AI is going to replace developers, it's just, we're trying to find a right and a wrong, a left versus right, AI or no AI kind of conversation. And I believe it's just a little bit more nuanced than that. And hopefully you're going to see my views at the end of this video. Okay, so before we actually go into vibe coding and whether it's good or not and all that kind of stuff, we just gotta kind of understand how this term even came about in the first place. So this guy, Andre Karpathy, I think is his name, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, he was one of the co-founders of OpenAI. So this is the sort of the old guys that were sort of working on the original set of LLMs, large language models. And he kind of posted this tweet, which is only, believe it or not, just February. So it's just a few months ago. And he was like, I call it vibe coding, this new kind of coding called vibe coding, where you're basically just fully embracing sort of the vibes of the model and let it just kind of go along. The point is that he came up with this term and it just took the world by storm. I don't know how or why, but this thing, look, it's got like 5.1 million views. It's insane. And I think it's just because of the fact that this guy was just really considered a really, really smart guy. And he's just saying, you know what? I give up. Like, I'm just, whatever the AI gives me, I'm just going to take it and just roll with it. I think that's sort of like everybody was like, oh, well, if that smart guy does it, then we should do it too, right? Like, I think that's kind of where it's coming from. I don't know. I don't really know how the internet works and why certain things go viral and why other things don't. The point is that vibe coding became a thing. And if you were following the news, you would have kind of fall into two camps. One, oh man, this vibe coding thing is amazing. It's great. Let's just go with it. Let's roll with it and just build apps. Or two, you're sort of in the, yeah, this whole vibe coding thing is just not going to work in my environment. Like, I mean, it's cool and all, but it's just not going to work for me. And I definitely fell into sort of the, it's not going to work for me camp. Like, there's no question about it. That was sort of my stance for a really long time. So that was kind of the core and the birth of this. Now let's just take a step back a little bit and let's just talk about sort of like how developers worked back in the day. I'm coming from a traditional desktop, write every line of code, Visual Studio, the grown up, not Visual Studio code that everybody knows today. In fact, I literally remote desktop to my Visual Studio Code application every day to write real production code in Visual Studio. By the way, on a side note on this tangent here, this tool has gotten really good. This is Visual Studio 2026. So just in case for my .NET people out there, if you haven't tried it, Visual Studio 2026 version is actually really good. The current version of Visual Studio Copilot is garbage, but the 2026 version is actually phenomenal. So go check it out if you haven't. But my point is this, that back in the day, if you were a developer, any kind of developer, where we would be going to collect our code if you run into a problem or an issue or whatever it is Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow just became the de facto place for looking at code. And so you would go to Stack Overflow, you would do a search, you would find somebody that actually has a similar issue to yours. You'd read the code, you try to understand what it is. Half the time you just copy it because it's like, it has enough output, so it must work for somebody, so therefore it's going to work for me. You paste it into your code, you let it run. This is just sort of the classic problem, all right? The other alternative is you go and you talk to somebody, or you just talk to a rubber duck if you're like me and you don't have anybody around. So the point is that this is just what we did. So AI is essentially just a different form of this entire conversation. But for some strange reason, even though developers are generally the most sort of like progressive people in terms of like adopting technology, for some strange reason, we're reluctant. And I'm not entirely certain why is it that we're actually reluctant to embrace sort of vibe coding. Okay. So this is a real interesting thing for me because it's kind of like this, you're progressive, but yet when you see a progressive technology, you are suddenly very conservative and don't want to touch it kind of thing, right? Most developers don't want to break things. That's just a reality. Because when you break things, it means that you have to stay back after 6, 7, 8, 9 p.m. fixing that bug, getting rid of that problem. I know. I get it. I've been in that position. This is a really big problem. So for that reason, you try to be risk averse in terms of making sure that the code runs properly. Not only that, you have stakeholders and business people that are involved and, it looks bad in the company, etc. So the idea of just throwing an AI at some random piece of code and letting it just rip it's frankly just stupid. That being said though, we cannot underestimate or disagree with the fact that AI dramatically increases speed. That is just a fact. The speed at which you can develop things, the speed at which you can bring your ideas into the forefront makes a lot of sense. And you just cannot deny that fact. So the biggest benefit altogether, 100%, with vibe coding tools or the vibe coding process as it is today, is the fact that you could just remove boilerplate code, right? So if you're creating multiple apps, I'm thinking like an agency, a developer agency, a website agency, etc. You should be embracing vibe coding. You should be going all in, trying to come up with the most efficient, fastest process to build out your apps as fast as possible because it brings speed. The benefit of working in that type of environment is that you're building brand new applications. Now, the challenge comes if you're not building a brand new application, and I will talk about that in a bit. Okay. The other big benefit that vibe coding brings to the table is just the sheer level of consistency in the code. No human can consistently produce code this consistent all the time. I'm not talking about when the model hallucinates or anything like that. You could say, make sure that every single function or method in your code is properly commented and properly documented, and ensure that you have proper documentation for every single thing that you write. Yes, I'm talking to you, Mr. Developer, that don't like to write documentation, right? I'm guilty of that myself. So these are things that you just cannot deny with an AI sort of vibe coded platform. The other thing that's sort of underrated is if you're bringing a new developer onto a team, for them to be able to chat with an AI, to be able to figure out what's going on with this code, how it's working, figure out whether it's understand sort of the details around the code, so that they could basically just get up to speed so they can start contributing towards that team, bar none. The AI will do a way better job in explaining sort of overall details of the code specifics, not necessarily the business case, more than any human being. And the last point is that just from a UI standpoint, to be able to just kind of take sort of like whatever ideas you have and just spin up a UI really, really fast is really good. But the other point that I'll make here for AI is the fact that most developers suck at doing design. They're just really horrible at it. Like, have you ever watched a demo of a true developer? I'm not talking like a developer that knows like design. I'm talking like a true developer try to show you some demonstration of what they're working on. It always looks like garbage. Okay. And AI allows you to just speed that process up and just refine whatever UI it is so that it just looks more pretty and more presentable, right? And we know that UI matters. It's the reason why Apple's winning this game. Now, that being said, developers still matter. Developers still really, really matter, because developers come with experience, lots and lots of experience, and you cannot just wipe that away by just saying that an AI is going to be able to just replace you. I'm talking to you, Mr. Business Owner, that thinks that, oh, wow, our developer costs and overhead is really high, and we could just basically eliminate these people and fire them so that AI could just do the work. You cannot do that. Okay. So I just want to be clear with that. This idea, at least from my perspective here, that AI is just going to replace all developers is just madness. It's just hype, and it's just over bloated nonsense by the news companies just trying to push their agenda ads. Anyway, I digress. So the reality is that a real developer has a level of intuition about the code that no AI will be able to sort of match. Now, over time, yes, an AI can give you insights into your code. There's no question about it. But if that code has been around for 20, 30, 40 years, and a developer's been working it for 10 plus years, they will have a level of intuition on that code that you cannot beat if you're bringing AI into that project. And then there's certain things around scaling and architecture decisions that a developer will make better than an AI. That's not always the case, but for the most part, they're going to take in not only the code, but they're going to take in the company, they're going to take in the history, they're going to take in a lot of stuff. In other words, they have more context than the AI in order to make an intelligent decision about that. And this is one of the things that for sure a developer will know better than an AI. No question about it. And it's simply when to bend the rules. Now, I'm not saying you should bend rules as a developer, but the reality is all developers bend rules. You know, you're trying to get something out the door. It's Friday at 5:30 and you want to go home to your family, or you got a date to go on, right? You're going to bend the rules to just get that stuff shipped. Okay. I don't care who you are. You're going to do that unless it's like some mission critical stuff and it's like do or die. But if that's the case, then you don't care about your Friday night. That's just reality. But sometimes it's okay to cut corners. Sometimes you don't need the most production ready system because you're just testing it in a very small environment. And with that, a vibe coded app might not necessarily understand that context and just create a lot of noise in terms of code that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise have to deal with. So developers are also good at making trade-offs under pressure, right? If they have a deadline, they can say, okay, you know what? We could cut these features out. We could bring this one. Whereas an AI will just continue just trying to get every single thing done because it doesn't necessarily understand that there's a deadline pressure for tomorrow morning. Okay. So what's the deal and what's the takeaway? If you're a business owner, you're probably thinking to yourself, great, let the AI do the work. We could save a lot of money. We could build apps faster. We could go faster, etc. Now, if you're a traditional developer, you're probably thinking to yourself, you know what, I don't think this is the right thing for me. It's not going to work in my code base. So you know what, yes, I'll great for some experiments as a side hobby, but it's not really going to work in production. So my take is this: you need a hybrid approach. That's my take on this entire thing, as I believe that in order for this to work, being sort of a business owner that kind of sits in the middle, where I'm one day a business owner and the other day a developer, right? This ability to be in a hybrid position really matters, especially with AI. So I believe that we can do a hybrid approach that works, where the AI can handle the repetitive code, initiate UI designs, and just basically focus on making sure the code is consistent and clean and organized. And then on the other side, you have the developer that's more focused on things like business logic and translating requirements from the business owner, and then acting more like a product manager. And I think if you can adopt this sort of hybrid approach, I think that would be a really solid ground for you to be able to make sure that you're meeting the requirements of the business, you're getting the speed and efficiency of the AI, but you're also keeping the human being in the loop. So with that comes some new skills that I think every developer going forward is going to have to think about. Number one is you need to be able to learn how to write simple, repeatable standards, allow clear and consistent sort of guidelines so that the AI can follow it. That's absolutely required. So in other words, documentation, the thing that you didn't like to do before is the thing that you have to do now because of AI. Testability becomes even more important. If you're writing large code base, you have to test it, and you need to verify that it actually works. This is something that's absolutely critical in order to get proper quality code. You also got to clearly define your business requirements. If you're doing a big, large project with lots of complex requirements, using a tool like SpecKit would be a great choice in order to kind of keep the AI sort of model on track. Go watch my video on that if you haven't watched it. And definitely code review becomes now a skill, because one of the problems that I've run into is sort of like I've gone through this journey is the fact that the AI is just significantly better at writing lots and lots of code faster than I could definitely write it. So your skill now evolves from writing the code to more of a having to critique and review the code to make sure that things are there. So that becomes sort of a critical skill that you need to have altogether. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is I think we need to embrace the difference between the AI world and the developer world, and we need to figure out how to merge these together and not necessarily keep them apart. Don't fight with the AI. Don't fight with how the AI writes the code, which is something that most people do. There's like, oh, I don't like the style of the AI. I don't think we need to get into that sort of nitty gritty. This is where style guides and stuff like that comes into play. Write very specific rules. So in other words, you have to become very prescribed and very detailed in the way that you give these rules to the AI to kind of keep it on track. And then just treat the AI like it's a junior developer. The way that you would treat a junior developer is how you need to treat the AI. And for the business people, treat your developers like they are product managers, so that you can basically give them project management requirements and they could basically pass it on to the junior developers, aka the AI, get them to write the code and have them manage sort of the overall life cycle of the project, rather than saying, you know what, I'm going to get rid of you because AI can do it faster, better, right? I think that's just a wrong approach altogether. So with that, hopefully you've gotten some value from this video. If you have gotten some value from this video, please subscribe. I'm trying to grow this channel. It would mean a lot to me. Watch all the other videos on the channel around vibe coding, and that might be able to help you with this entire process. Have yourself a wonderful day.